The Powkiddy V10 is the latest in a long line of budget handhelds that focus in on Game Boy Advance emulation and compact design to hit a sub $50 price point. As with most devices these days, it can actually do that job very well. For the right person, it might even excel as a pocketable travel companion for daily commutes, based solely on its stubby design. But you can probably tell all that already just by looking at the device. If so, well, the real question left to answer is, are the compromises Powkiddy made to design something so cheap and compact worth your time and money? And well, Lit NXT sent a V10 over for me to review and answer that exact question. To start, let me reiterate that this is first and foremost a Game Boy Advance machine. From the 3x2 IPS display to the squat design, there's something that feels just right about playing Game Boy Advance games on this system, and a little compromised about playing many other systems. Any systems that output with 4x3, 16:9, or 1:1 aspect ratios are going to come with black bars around them. It hasn't entirely been annoying in practice, but this is already a relatively small 3.5-inch display. Reducing the screen real estate anymore isn't the best experience. With that in mind, other systems still play quite well. The chipset inside isn't exactly a powerhouse, but I found it to be more than enough to play certain PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast games. Lighter PSP games, like Loco Roco, also felt perfectly fine to play with only the occasional hiccup. Performance problems only arise when I push past those limits. For example, more moderate PSP games like Mega Man Maverick Hunter X show more hiccups more often. Meanwhile, heavier games like God of War Chains of Olympus only run at about half speed. That's not entirely unexpected for a budget system like this. Plus, even if you're willing to look past some minor performance issues, you'll still run into a roadblock of only having a D-pad for directional control. PSP, PS1, Dreamcast, and N64 games that rely on one or more thumbsticks aren't going to feel the best to play on a system like this. In general, I'd say if you aren't looking for something to play Game Boy Advance games, with the occasional SNES and PS1 games sprinkled in, maybe the Powkiddy V10 isn't right for you. If you are looking for that kind of experience though, there's actually quite a bit to love about the V10. During the week I've had the chance to use it, I've had a great time replaying Pokemon Leaf Green. It's the perfect size to slip into my pocket and take with me on my daily commute. For such a pocketable device, it's also surprisingly comfortable in hand. The rounded bottom corners nestle nicely into my palms, and the rest of my fingers curl comfortably around the body. I do kind of wish it were a bit taller to allow a bit more room for my hands, but I'm willing to sacrifice that for the compactness on display here. Speaking of display, that 3.5-inch 3x2 IPS display looks fantastic in person. It gets bright enough that I've no trouble playing in direct sunlight, and dim enough that I'm not blinding myself at night. While the colors may not be quite as vibrant and accurate as my analog pocket, they still look great in isolation for a device that costs a quarter of the price. Across the 10-ish hours I've put into playing on the V10, I haven't had a moment where I wish I were playing on a different device. Even while having, technically, better devices to play the same supported systems, I find myself wanting to pick up the V10 more often, based solely on it being more convenient to pick up and play. That excitedness to play on the V10 is only slightly backed by the controls. The face buttons are soft, quiet, and springy. On a larger device, I probably wouldn't like it as much, but here it kind of works to provide this feeling of a console that's very casual and takes little effort to jump into. Whether I'm working my way through a gym battle in Leaf Green or trying to make the next jump in Super Mario Advance, the action buttons have just the right amount of feedback to let me know I've triggered an action without needing a ton of effort. I quite like them. Unfortunately, I'm a bit more mixed about the D-pad. It's the same sort of soft and springy actuation, just with a tad less feedback. 90% of the time, I don't mind it, but there are occasions where it really lets down the gameplay experience. In fighting games, like Soul Calibur, it's particularly awkward because it subtracts a tiny bit of certainty from my button presses. When I need to spam a direction to back off or close the distance between me and my opponent, it doesn't feel great. False diagonals are also a real problem with this D-pad. Certain directions seem worse than others, but it's easy to unintentionally drive a character in the wrong direction if I'm not being purposeful about my inputs. It hasn't been so egregious that I've hated using the V10 or anything like that. However, I wouldn't blame any folks picking one of these up for opening the device and adding some Captain tape to the D-pad's contacts to reduce its sensitivity. The real downside here is, well, I don't think a fix for the shoulders would be quite as easy. The V10's inline shoulder buttons are very loud and very clacky. They also manage to be simultaneously stiff to press, but sensitive enough that I keep hitting them accidentally. Don't get me wrong, they're not the worst shoulder buttons I've ever used. Rather, they're just a bit jarring alongside the soft touch of the face buttons. For me, their saving grace is really the fact that they're unnecessary for the bulk of games I want to play on this machine, and, well, the fact that the V10 costs under $50. As such, I'm willing to cut them some slack here, but you'll immediately know if overly clicky buttons are a deal breaker for you. On the same page, there are some other minor gripes that might turn someone away from the Powkiddy V10. For example, there's no physical volume slider. Instead, volume up and down is controlled by holding down the plus button and pressing left or right on the D-pad. A volume indicator doesn't even always show up, which can be a pain when I want to play in public. These types of shortcuts are a bit of a plague on this device, to be honest. There's no immediately obvious way to edit them or see what shortcuts are available while using the device. If you're the type of person to throw away user manuals, I'd recommend keeping the one for the V10 handy, just in case. ArcOS, in general, makes it a bit awkward to find where specific settings are located. There's an options menu in the main carousel with emulation station options, a start menu with system options, and a select menu for, I guess, game list options. It's all a bit much, and I've had to spend more time than I'd like trying to track down where in each menu specific settings are located. If you're already familiar with this layout from other handhelds, I'm sure you'll be fine, but newcomers, on the other hand, will likely need to do some fiddling and general exploration to learn what's there. It's all a bit janky in a way that's not entirely unexpected from a budget handheld manufacturer, but still frustrating nonetheless. With that in mind, I'm not entirely doom and gloom about the software. In fact, outside the rare occasions where I need to change settings, Emulation Station feels perfectly streamlined for a handheld this portable. The system starts up quickly and immediately boots to a menu that allows me to choose a system, choose a game, and get playing. Unlike a lot of my other handhelds, Wake from Sleep is also immediate with a single tap of the power button, which really helps to lower the friction of picking up where I left off in a game. It's been more than adequate to play on the train, put to sleep, pick up again at lunch, put to sleep again, and then pick up once more after I get off work. If you're looking for a handheld to play in short bursts that doesn't add a lot of fluff in between, this is an example of one that does it well. Though I'd highly recommend limiting the amount of games you have on your microSD card at once. Long lists of games are terrible to scroll through with this D-pad and kinda ruin the whole pick up and play experience. Luckily, adding and removing games is incredibly easy. My microSD card came pre-formatted with all the system folders I'd need to get up and running. Adding my game backups to play on the V10 was as easy as plugging the microSD card into a computer and dropping the files in the right folder. The only hassle that I experienced was getting some of the box art to populate within Emulation Station. Since the V10 doesn't have Wi-Fi, I had to use a network adapter to scrape box art and update the files on the system. Still, in general, it's been a really smooth experience to just play games on the V10. Let's wrap up this video by reviewing the kinds of folks who might or might not want to get a Powkiddy V10. Starting with the folks who might not have a great time. If you're looking for something a bit more performant that's geared less toward playing Game Boy Advance games, the V10 just isn't for you. Likewise, if you know the games you'd want to play depend heavily on having a really good D-pad, the experience may not be as good as something like the, Anbernic RG35XXH or RG35XX Plus, both of which cost just a little bit more, but will play more systems with less stutter and have more reliable controls. The folks who I could see benefiting most from the Powkiddy V10 know they want something specifically for Game Boy Advance or other 3x2 system emulation. They want something pocketable and as convenient as possible, even if that comes with controls or software features that are less than ideal. For those folks, there's plenty to love about the V10, and they'll likely have a great time. Ultimately, I do think this is more of a secondary or travel handheld than the final device someone will prefer for everything. Given the wealth of other less pocketable handhelds on the market, that's definitely not a bad thing though. I think there's more than enough room for someone to buy something like this solely to play a few minutes of Drill Dozer during their morning commute. That's definitely been the niche that I feel setting into within my own collection, and I don't hate it. Those are my thoughts though. I'd love to know yours. Are you in the market for a pocketable handheld like the V10, or are you someone who already owns a V10 and has thoughts of your own? Let me know down in the comments. As always, if you found this video helpful or informative, go ahead and give it a like to let me know, then get subscribed for more handheld reviews in the near future. This video was made possible by a review sample provided by LitNXT. Beyond requesting that I show off their website in this video, they had no input into the making of this video and are seeing it for the first time alongside all y'all. If you're interested in picking up a Powkiddy V10, I'll have a link to LitNXT's store page down in the video description alongside a discount code LitNXT provided me for 10% off. Meanwhile, if the V10 doesn't quite scratch your itch, maybe consider checking out the Anbernic RG35XXSP review I posted just a couple weeks ago. Alternatively, if you're not actually under a strict budget, maybe check out my recent review on the CMF Phone 1. For only $200, it can play PS2 games pretty well. But that's going to be all for this video. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. Until next time, catch you later.